fellas travels. Oh, I gotta tell you, I've had the worst probably 8 months, 9 months I've ever had. Health issues, you know, my financial plans got a bit screwed up. It's all around to do with sale of a house and such like that, and you know, there's been a hiccup there, and it sort of caught me a bit of a spot. It was all planned, and now it's gone to shit, and I haven't prospected. I stopped prospecting probably 9 months ago, but I haven't prospected for must be 10 months, and partially due to health, or probably mostly due to health, and a few other things that were going on, and I can't even get back to the goldfields at the moment. And you know, I'm in a bit of a spot, and it's not great, but it's not the end of the world. You know, things will work out eventually. But anyway, enough jibber jabber about that. I just want to do a review on. I'll be reviewing the D-Max 10,000k review on the D-Max soon. Have racked a few Ks up. I've had it about 5 months now, I think. 4 months, be coming up to 5 months. Anyway, let's talk about what this video is actually meant about. Oh, mosquitoes, guys, they're tearing me apart. So we'll just jump in. So I was at the beach on last week, and I didn't fish. The conditions are just terrible, but it's good to get on the beach, spend the day at the beach with Barnes. So you can see I haven't even cleaned my car out. It's quite expensive to go to the car wash places and clean your car out consistently, so I've run with that little bit of sand. So this is the second ScanGauge 3 that I've had. I had one in the Cruiser 76 series, and before that, I mean, I've had these ScanGauges probably going on 10 years now. I had the ScanGauge 2 in my previous D-Max / Colorado, and then I went to dual, and then I had dual ScanGauge 2s in the 76 series. Then I went to the ScanGauge 3 when that came out, and quite honestly, team, you know, I wouldn't be without it. Because even though, you know, we've got all the gauging now, the gauging's, you know, pretty flash in the new cars now. It does have a, you know, like an analog style temperature gauge. But in my experience, and I'm going right back to the days of me, you know, my Austin Lancer, and then my EJ Holden, then my Spitfire, Triumph Spitfire Mark II. In my experience, you don't get much movement on. I know this is the fact in the 76 series. In the 76 series, you know, I could get a variant of 5 degrees, and you wouldn't even notice that on the temperature gauge. And in my experience, going back those years, is by the time you see it in the red, target's down, patch out. You know, she's over and done with. And you can't afford to cook an engine. Not these days. Or crack a head. Most commonly we used to crack heads when we used to make our engines too hot back in the old days in the old grey and red motors. Or blow a head gasket at least. But the ScanGauge gives you that opportunity to monitor it very finely. And the ScanGauge 3 is a game changer, I think. It's really good. It's got a great display. It's so customizable. It's so easy. I love this. I love the fact that you can move, you know, you can move things around on your screen if you want. And you've got a 3-screen display. If you swipe from the center, you can actually swipe across, back and forth. The things I love about this now, I'm in a car with considerable technology and an automatic transmission. One is the, and I'll swap these around actually. I must have accidentally swapped them. So you can see exactly what's going on with your cooler temp, and you can set alarms on these. So, apology guys, I just got to have the car running a little bit just to keep this illuminated and keep something on the screen. You can see how I got my coolant temp, and I mean, it gives you the ability to read accurately. You can tell, you know, I know that, you know, 105 is by far as much as I want to get. I know I've never been over 97 and I was never over 98 in the 76 series, so I know that I'm always, you know, within the guideline of the temperature, and I can tell if I see that start going up. Now the thing is, you can set alarms on this and under monitors. I mean, they're very customizable, but you can see I've got, you know, the coolant temp set, and what have I set that to? Anything over 95 degrees. It'll alert me. So actually that tells me that I haven't had it over 95 degrees actually, and I haven't towed with this vehicle yet, but The EGT Bank 1 Serial 2 or Socket 2 or whatever the S stands for in Bank 1, that's actually the temperature sensor in the DPF. And I think I've got that set to about 600. It's important to know. I mean, people might ask, why would I want to know that? Well, you know, guys, it's pretty important. I remember when the cruisers first come out, they spoke about, in fact, I think it was one of the Ag departments or Department of Lands or Department of Wildlife, whatever. I can't even remember what state it was in, but I do remember that they had concerns about starting fires with the DPF. That DPF in the 76 series and the Toyota V8 series I'd seen that as high as 670 degrees. Now that's centigrade. Consequently, I suppose that's why the ceramic, extremely hot. And I was very mindful of that. I didn't like to stop if it was doing a burn and those temperatures are up. I didn't like to drive off road. I didn't like to go into water. There was a number of reasons that I didn't want to go into certain conditions when that DPF was running maximum temperature. If they shit the bed, you're up for a lot of money. And I think if they shit the bed because you dived into a creek, possibly Toyota may not warrant you, although I don't know what the conditions are. I have heard that there's very long warranty on those DPFs, but that's only hearsay, so don't take that by verbatim by any means. But coolant temperature, very important, as I said, and I've got an alarm on that. Automatic transmission, first automatic transmission vehicle I've had in a diesel, and in what I understand and what I've read, in reference to the transmissions, these automatic transmissions in the Isuzus, and this probably goes for the others, but they're designed to run between about 85, if I remember correctly, to 115. Once they get to 115 or a bit over 115 degrees in temperature, the transmission fluid starts to break down. The elements or the preservatives or whatever makes that fluid unique for automatic transmissions, it starts to lose those elements. Those elements start to burn off. So automatic trans, I monitor. Coolant, I monitor. EGTs, Bank 1, Serial 1, that has an alarm set to 600 degrees. So scrolling to the second screen, I can actually see on here the average regen distance, and generally it's been around about 190k that I'm getting a regen happening. So I don't actually show the temperature on this screen, but I show what the status is. So when it's active, and I will get an alarm because it always goes over 600 degrees when it's doing a burn, but when it's active, I try, in fact I do, I basically go out of my way to ensure that that burn completes. But I think the key is as long as you're allowed to do its regular burns, you're probably not going to have any problems with them. And being a solid ceramic, very high temperature item, I'd be thinking that, they should have some longevity. You may have a sensor issue or a issue with the cable that goes to them because, that's also getting very hot. But I think that's kind of minute in as far as it'd be under warranty, I have no doubt. But if you're out of warranty, I don't think it's probably going to cost you a great deal of money to get that resolved. But anyway, that's neither here or there. So that's EGTs. I like to see what my coolant maximum temperature is. I set that for the tank, so I can see that on this tank, which I've only just recently filled up, but I can see the maximum has got to 90 degrees. I like to see what gear I'm in, especially when I'm driving on the beach. So you can actually see what gear it's in, and this is why in the review I'll talk about it. But from fourth down to third, I got a little bit of a it might be normal, but it feels like a little bit of a shunt. It feels a little bit harsh to me when it changes down gears at certain times, mostly when it's cold. But I know that happens going from fourth gear to third gear because of the ScanGauge. Average litres per 100k. I thought there was a discrepancy here, but what I found out is I've got this set to tank, so that's my average litres per 100. So I was thinking there was a discrepancy, but it's actually not, because this is a measurement on the tank. This is the average litres per 100k measured on the tank. which is reset each time that the tank's filled up. So you can see that the average is a little bit better overall than what it is just on a tank. But that varies, of course, depending on what type of drive you're doing. Kilometres to empty, I have done a few Ks, but generally kilometres to empty will be anywhere between about 750 and 800, depending on what sort of driving I'm doing. It can be as high as 970, 980. If I've just filled up and I'm just hitting a country drive and the conditions are ideal. Litres used, that is surprisingly accurate. And because I compare it every time I go and get fuel, it's great because I can have a look at that and go, oh geez, it's going to cost me about 60 bucks. Always put the nozzle in the same distance, and I only let it click once. I never try and trickle feed it into a fuller tank. ScanGauge 3, guys, I know people will say they're quite expensive and there's other alternatives. I believe these are the best. I'm a real fan of the ScanGauge. It's always done me well. I've had the clear codes on my previous D-Max 2009 D-Max / Colorado when I had it serviced, a private service done out of warranty, and in the intake, an air sensor plug on top of, I think was mounted on top of the intake air box, wasn't plugged in properly. And I'd go in limp mode and get a code. And I used that in a scan to see what the code was. I looked up the code. I've got an application on my phone that shows you all the codes. And I looked up the code and it mentioned that it was that intake. I pulled the plug out. I had a look at it. It was a little bit dusty around the plug. I gave it a really light spray of electrical contact cleaner. Made sure it was nice and allowed it to dry out properly, that contact cleaner does. Plugged it back in. Never had the code again. And I remember when I unplugged it, the plug didn't seem to be plugged in firmly. So they are useful in that. I've tried the OBD2 wireless connections with, I think I used Torque on my display. I had an Android display in my 76 series because I installed a double DIN screen, and it was an Android. And so I could install the applications that I ran on my phone. It was just fantastic, and I set that up with Torque, so I had a really nice display. It basically was in the center. There was a bigger screen than this, in the center of my 76, and it displayed all my gauging there. However, I used to have problems with connections. It used to drop out, and it didn't reconnect until I started the car again. So I ended up going back to the ScanGauge 3 in my 76 series. Because prior to the ScanGauge 3 and prior to going to that wireless system on the Android, when I put the Android screen in, I did have dual ScanGauge 2s that used to sit down there on the console in the 76. I know that I have an alarm in the in my 24 model D-Max that will come on or will display if the transmission gets too hot, but it's the same discussion that I had when I was talking about the temperature. I mean, if you're driving on sand and for whatever reason, you get a bit hot in the transmission and the alarm comes on the screen and says, oh, transmission's overheating, it's probably a bit late it's probably not going to, write your transmission off, but it's probably going to do some damage. And if you are remote and it has damaged the constitution of the transmission oil, and you start getting tarnishing on your bands and things like that, however the new transmissions work, it is going to be detrimental. So you want to know what's going on there before it happens. That's the hottest temperature, but that's at the point where damage begins. That's at the point where deterioration starts. And the same with every engine temperature. You get up in the red, but we're in the red. That's the point. That's the edge of the cliff. After that, it's nothing but free fall, and you've got to hope that you land somewhere that's not going to do some damage. So I like to have the ScanGauge for those very reasons. Anyway, apart from Barney snoring and me having to start the engine now and then, and it's just beautiful. I'm sitting down this beautiful area. It's grass and I'm in the shade and there's a beautiful cool breeze blowing and it's so quiet. Fact is, I'm only about 100 metres away from where I grew up. The house up in the corner there, you know, it was my mum and dad's place, and I grew up there we moved there when I was about, let's say, no, I was probably older than 7, when I was maybe 9, when I was 9 years old. Anyway, enough jibber jabber. I didn't want this video to be too long, but I did want to give a review and talk a little bit about things that might be associated with why I had the ScanGauge in place. Oh, the other thing I should mention too, I almost forgot, the mount on the ScanGauge 3 is so good. It's got the sticky back that you tend to get on some of these mounts now, and I have done some corrugations and some rough roads. It's never even looked to come loose. It has a magnetic mount on the back also, so that can just lift off and you can just unplug it. The magnetic mount is, it's relatively firm, but I do find that I might get a little bit of movement of this over a lot of corrugations, but that's about it. I normally have it sitting about there. Now I've got the new dash mat on it, I'm not so worried about it touching the dash. I suppose I should just mention it now. You know, I should just come back to this quickly. I think that was maybe 340 bucks. I bought it on Afterpay, guys. You know, it's just the way to do things for me at the moment. So it wasn't really, I didn't feel that abruptness of that big outlay of money. But whatever I paid for it, you know, it's a bit of a hit to the wallet when things are a bit tight. But that's got to pay for itself. There wouldn't be anything cheaper than that might go wrong with your car as far as transmission, temperature, codes. You know, I mean, if you get a code that's just a random code like I had on the, you know, on my my other Isuzu engine in the 2009 model, to take that in, that's gonna, you know what, $300 to find out that it either needed a clean or was just loose on the intake, you know, manifold. I think it was the flow sensor. So that paid for itself in view as that, because it was the previous model, which wasn't quite as expensive. So I think that's enough. I've had a fair old rabbit on, which is easy for me to do. I'm a bit of a talker. So I think we'll leave it at that. Thanks for sticking with me, guys. I hope you got something out of this. I hope you enjoyed this video and the talk about the ScanGauge. Barney's having a snore in the background because he's absolutely knackered. He's having a fat time these days. He loves chasing butterflies and getting down the beach. Look after yourself, look after the family, look after your health. Money can't buy your health back, guys, and health issues can't always be addressed. Sometimes you just have to deal with them and take on the expectations on what the impact that's going to be as far as longevity goes, I suppose. But anyway, thanks, team. See you, team. Take it easy. Woo! Longer video than I expected it was going to be.
Like holy water, like salt on a bird, rain in a drought, it's all over